For as much love as Skyrim seems to get, I have a confession to make. I've always thought, even on release when I was a kid, that Skyrim is extremely overrated. I find the quests and writing laughably mundane, the mechanics and RPG systems trivial, and the choice and consequence non-existent, which in an RPG, for me at least, is tragic and a death sentence. And for that reason, I've always been a proponent of the idea that Skyrim, the Elder Scrolls, and even Fallout largely are quite overrated and overstated, which is pretty ironic coming from someone that's made so many videos on them on this channel. I like Fallout 4's combat and crafting, but its writing is just okay. I love Skyrim's music and ambiance, but as I just mentioned, the rest kinda sucks. And really, almost every Bethesda game is like this for me. Fallout 3 has a compelling setting, but a lot of it's pretty boring. Morrowind is absolutely fantastic until you have to fight a slug for 10 minutes with your sword missing every swing, and even Fallout New Vegas, a game made by a completely different company but in the same vein, I find fantastic in many ways, yet all housed in a setting I just can't like. The drab sand and openness of the Mojave just isn't my thing. However, there is one what we can call Scrolls-like game out there that I do find amazing. A game that shows why this genre can be so cool, and one that everyone should play before they die. My first Bethesda game ever, The Elder Scrolls Oblivion. Just like the other Scrolls-like on offer here, the title too has many issues, including samey dungeons, a lack of varied voice acting, and Oblivion gates that make you want to cry whenever you see one. But beneath all of these flaws is an experience unlike anything else out there. First of all, Oblivion has a heavy reliance on a system known as Radiant AI. At the time, Bethesda turned this artificial intelligence system in its game up to 11, and allowed NPCs to all have their own routines and schedules, forcing them to bump into one another out in the open world and start entire conversations about local gossip or big moments that have happened in the main questline. It makes the world feel so alive and lived in, where you can simply walk around town and see people talking, trading, or even randomly starting to fight one another, and everything each NPC does is realistically reacted to by every other NPC. It's a beautiful chain of events that can happen, albeit being pretty wonky at times, but that only adds to the charm of this game. Oblivion feels like a real adventure, one where each town is unique and full of life, every bit of wildlife is pristine, and it's all housed in a setting that comes across as whimsical and almost happy, a stark contrast to the boring gray and white tones of, say, Skyrim or other medieval fantasy RPGs since the inception of Game of Thrones and Lord of the Rings. I personally prefer the art style of Oblivion so much more, because it still retains the harshness too, with some of the most memorable Bethesda questlines of all time, including the Dark Brotherhood, Thieves Guild, and the Shivering Isles DLC. The writing in Oblivion is miles better than any of the other modern Bethesda titles as well, and it shows just how much better this formula is when you have some competent world building and lore behind it. The Elder Scrolls and Fallout have amazing worlds. That's the real reason I like making videos. But actually playing the games themselves, to me at least, is just a constant reminder of how much Bethesda is letting down the IPs that they now own. When I play something like Skyrim or Starfield, I literally roll my eyes at how little thought goes into many of the quest encounters and world building. Things just don't make sense the more you think about them. But in Oblivion at least, it's easier to suspend your disbelief. Towns and cities feel like actual places, NPCs have believable motives, and quests are designed in ways that allow for player expression, like murder mysteries where you must find the killer, or paintings that send you into entirely new realities. To me, Oblivion is the perfect example of what the Scrolls formula should aim to be. And while I do appreciate, say, Skyrim's moment-to-moment exploration way more, none of that matters without memorable writing and quests like that from Oblivion, mixed in with more thought-provoking gameplay and RPG systems. In fact, another game that I think actually did this quite well and proves the point I think I'm trying to make is Tainted Grail: The Fall of Avalon, a recent indie Scrolls-like game that also shows how fun this formula is when you have competent writing and a focus on deep RPG systems and immersive sim design. But at the risk of spending an hour talking about why I think that game's great too, I'll just say this. For my money, Oblivion reigns as the king of this open world exploration formula. One that certainly has so much to be improved upon, but should be played by just about everyone, because not only is it extremely fun and engaging, but it's a reminder of what made the Elder Scrolls series so special for so many people in the first place. Funnily enough too, Morrowind is even better in many accounts here, with some truly otherworldly and amazing writing and world building, but its systems and design are just so old now that I don't think I could recommend it for everyone to play. It takes a lot of effort to fall in love with that game now, while Oblivion, especially with the remaster, is instantly fantastic. If there's one game that I think most people would agree everyone should play before they die, it's got to be Subnautica, a title that takes place almost entirely underwater and is all the better for it. But you see, it's not just being underwater that makes Subnautica special, it's how amazing that underwater world is. In the more shallow portions, you can find lush coral reefs full of plant and animal life, teeming with color and the sun refracting off the water. These parts of the game are more calm and serene, allowing for easy base creation and exploration into neighboring realms like the Kelp Forest, a sea of never-ending vines which reach into the sky with ample spots to hide. And there really is just something about being inside the universe and world of Subnautica that feels mesmerizing. The music, the ambiance, and most of all, the dread. Because you see, as you make your way deeper and deeper into the water, you will find pitch black horror, screeches from monsters the size of buildings, and constant fear of the unknown. While in its opening moments Subnautica seems to be a more relaxed game, it's this sense of relaxation mixed with the fear that makes the experience so unforgettable. There really is nothing like that first playthrough of especially the first game, where everything is so alien and foreign. And yet the reward of exploration and discovery is so great, it forces you forward even into the depths of hell. Subnautica does a great job of biome diversity too, with tons of places to visit, all with their own unique flair, so much so that I made an entire video on each one of them if you guys are interested. It's a living, breathing ecosystem, one where you can just sit back, make a base, and watch predators hunt prey or prey hide in the small alcoves of the local plant life. Each and every bit of this flora and fauna can be studied too, and it all comes together to make Subnautica feel alive. And honestly, everyone needs to play this game just because of how innovative it is as well. There are no other survival games, or really games in general, on the market quite like it. And there's a reason the fan base has grown so large and devoted. The mystery of discovering what's hiding in the ocean, the horrifying noises in the deep, or the simple question of what's out there. For my money, Subnautica is the best survival game ever made, and one that will make you appreciate a game that has essentially no combat, yet still is more tense than most others out there. If you haven't already, do yourself a favor and play one of the most innovative and memorable games of the past few decades. For any of you who have listened to me talk about video games before, you know that my favorite genre is far and away science fiction. But in terms of deep and lore-heavy sci-fi games, sadly, not many titles have even attempted to create something special. However, luckily for us, there is one game series that showed just how amazing sci-fi in games can be, telling one of the most gripping stories in games history that everyone needs to play before they die: the Mass Effect trilogy. Set over 100 years into our future, shortly after humanity's first contact with alien species and the discovery of grand civilizations spanning across the Milky Way, the story of these three games follows Commander Shepard, a man thrust into the middle of a massive conspiracy that quite literally affects all of history, and more importantly, the future. It's a science fiction lover's dream come true, full of dozens of complex and interesting new alien races, mega structures like the Citadel where we can walk around and simply learn more about the universe, and galactic-level space battles that put even modern big-budget movies and television to shame. And on top of all of this, one of the best parts about the series is strangely the Codex. Anything and everything you discover out in the world, every new species or technology, has an entire multi-paragraph long entry, read aloud by voice actor Neil Ross with his unmistakably booming tone. It adds so much flavor to the world and its history, giving us a chance to dive into the lore of other peoples and races, wars that spanned for decades, and technology that changed society forever. Even walking up to bars or shops in games is a visceral experience, where you will feel like you are in a real place. one that makes sense, with racism, murder, and all the darkness that comes along with humanity as well, while also making things so much more interesting both politically and socially. For example, in the game The Krogan, a race of giant brutish lizards that love war, are on the verge of extinction. At the hands of the Solarians, they have been infected with a genophage, an ancient disease which limits their ability to breed, slowly killing their people and culture. Originally, the genophage was unleashed on the Krogan after they saved the galaxy from a prehistoric enemy known as the Rachni, which almost took over all known worlds at one point. But in the wake of their victory, a power vacuum was left for the Krogan to usurp, and fearing their military might, the Solarians, with their mastery of technology, knew that only by creating a contagion could they keep them in check. Stories and lore like this are what make Mass Effect as a series so great and memorable. And one of the best parts about it all is in each of the games from the trilogy, we can directly affect this story as it happens. Choices you make in the first game carry over to the second and third, and by the end of the series, you will quite literally be deciding the fates of entire races in the universe. The stakes are as high as things can get, where it feels like every mission either has a big emotional payoff or a huge story or lore reveal that make them such a joy to actually go on. And I cannot express just how amazing a first-time experience playing this trilogy really is. Each of the 3 games is unique and fun in their own way. The first has the best lore and world building by far, with combat that feels janky but is hilariously fun playing as a biotic, essentially the Force users of this universe. Mass Effect 2, in my opinion by far the worst of the 3, is actually most people's favorite, with the biggest cast of characters and an ending to this day that is one of the best in gaming history. And the third game, for all the flack it gets for its own ending, in my opinion has almost all the best moments and most interesting choices in the whole series, with some cutscenes that I even now a decade later still think about. There really is no bad game in the original trilogy. All of them are amazing in their own way, and all of them have dozens of hours of fresh and interesting content in one of the most well-realized places in fiction, well, ever. Trust me, as someone that loves science fiction, I've read a ton of books, watched a lot of shows, and played a lot of games. The Foundation series, Culture, Dune, The Expanse, and one of my personal recent favorites, Exodus, maybe my favorite sci-fi book of all time, which has a game coming out next year, ironically made by the original people who dreamt up Mass Effect. But even amongst all the titans of this genre, Mass Effect sits right on the throne with them. A universe full of interesting ideas, philosophies, cultures, and stories to tell that will stick with you for a lifetime. If you can't tell, I could literally go on for hours about why Mass Effect is so special. But a lot of those reasons would require spoilers too, about a main story that I think is one of the coolest ever conceived in a video game. So for now, all I can say is that if you have not played the Mass Effect trilogy yet, go back and get the remastered Legendary Edition with updated graphics and gameplay, and get ready to experience one of the best things this medium has ever made. The type of games that everyone must play before they die. Few games are as amazing all around as Clair Obscur Expedition 33. And for that reason, it's the very first game I need to talk about when considering the titles everyone needs to play before they die. The type of game which reminds us all just how beautiful this medium and art form can really be. To start, the narrative itself tells a tragically beautiful tale of a family suffering from loss, and of a team of expeditioners who are sent across the sea to stop a cosmic deity known as the Paintress, a woman who is killing large swaths of the population in the city of Lumiere every year. You see, starting at 100 and working her way down, each year the Paintress lowers the number on a giant rock by 1, and anyone over the age shown is swiftly turned into dust and never seen again. This results in countless families being torn apart, orphans being thrust into the streets, and the wisest of the community by the time we play not even making it into their mid-30s. So the expedition's main goal is to end this horrific cycle, and finally let the strange world that they live in rest in peace. It's a fascinating premise for a game in its own right, and one that hooked me almost immediately. But further in, more and more twists reveal themselves to you, which spin this narrative on its head even more. It's without a doubt one of the best main stories I've experienced in a game, well, ever. It's raw, gritty, philosophical, and even sentimental at times, with voice acting and performances that make you actually feel something. In cutscenes, characters talk over one another, fight and reminisce alike, and more than anything, genuinely come across like real human beings with genuine emotion. A lot of people don't know this, but the main writer for Expedition 33 wasn't even a writer by trade before either, rather being in finance like myself for her full-time job, and it goes to show that passion always trumps experience. And speaking of passion, it practically oozes off the screen when you play this game. Every fight is cinematic, every scene meticulously crafted with beautiful art, every boss unique and interesting, and even the combat itself in-game shows a level of love and care few studios even attempt to reach. The build crafting and RPG systems with the Pictos and Luminas are deep and complex as well, allowing for countless different and interesting ways to play that all feel unique and worthwhile. No party member has the same movesets or style, and it keeps things fresh. And honestly, I've never been a huge fan of JRPGs in general, but this game is so good that it shattered all my preconceived notions and showed me how great this style of game can be too. But more than any of that, any of the awesome and fun gameplay or cool mystery, it's how this game makes you feel that matters the most. Because at the end of the day, the games we should all play before we die, in my opinion at least, primarily stem from experiences that make our souls come alive. The types that are so memorable they make us reflect on our own lives or fall in love with the setting. And well, Expedition 33 is one of those games. A game that will make you love, laugh, and even cry, keeping you guessing until the very last moment with one of the best endings to a video game I have ever played in my life. And despite how hard the combat can be at times too, it's the type of title that everyone should play before they die because it shows how great games can be when there is so much passion behind it. There's a soul on offer here, art, a team that chose to make what they truly love rather than checking off a list of things that were needed to make money or molding something from the minds of random playtesters that just make things worse most of the time. You don't need a dedicated team of 300 developers to make something this special in our modern era. And because of that, despite popular arguments, games have never been as good as they are right now. There is more variety and quality nowadays than ever before. More titles that you can play that will leave a lasting effect on you than any previous time in history. Small teams like Sandfall Interactive, the minds behind Expedition 33, can now rival what before would have taken an army. And I'll say it again, passion always trumps mastery and manpower. Some of the key leadership and developers on this game didn't even know how to use Unreal Engine 5 before they started. What's your excuse? Trust me when I say this, go into this game blind, don't look at any reviews or any spoilers at all, simply jump in and enjoy and thank me later. It will prove to you why games nowadays are great and why anyone arguing otherwise is mad at the world and themselves and not the modern gaming industry, because they're failing to see what's right in front of them right now. And in terms of games like this, both new and old, we have a lot more where that came from, including the single most important game you can play before you die, coming up later on this list. In true cliche fashion, I've saved the best for last, because as any of you who have watched my channel for some time know, I think that without a doubt, Cyberpunk 2077 is the greatest game ever made, and one that every single person needs to play before they die. But you see, the main reason for this doesn't come from the fast-paced and frenetic combat, or the awe-inspiring graphics and architecture, all of which certainly adds to an amazing product. The main reason everyone needs to play this game before they die is because of the message, the meaning behind the beautiful facade. Every character you meet in this narrative is complex and introspective, hiding harrowing pasts and bombastic personalities, and with every quest and moment you go through with them, a bond is formed more and more. What makes these bonds so special in Cyberpunk, though, is in large part due to the presentation. While people speak to you, you can look around and walk. Animations present as real with facial capture and lip syncing that is believable instantly. And there is a world on offer here that breathes verisimilitude, the appearance of being true and real. The way characters speak using words like choom or delta doesn't come across as out of place. It's genuine to this world and sold so well that I've heard people use cyberpunk slang in real life and it just works. The immersion in the game is unmatched. And that's not even bringing up the fact that this game on a high-end PC with max ray tracing and high FPS is a surreal event, with many scenes, especially in the Dogtown DLC, that arguably look better than real life. On top of this immersive template too is a huge amount of build variety, including going in guns blazing, running around like a cyber ninja with your sword out, and being a hacker who hides in the shadows, blowing off people's heads with nothing more than a thought. I still can't believe this is the studio's first attempt at a first-person shooter due to the fact that it's so high quality. And when you mix that in with fun driving and sneaking sections, it's hard not to love the moment-to-moment gameplay on offer as well. But as I stated before, it's the writing, the world that makes Cyberpunk 2077 special, not just the gameplay. Even on release, when everyone was hating on this title, I remember just being in awe. The city lights at night, dense and crowded downtown areas with hundreds of NPCs and dozens of shops to go into, or elevators that take you to the upper levels where you can walk freely around and just take it all in. Because honestly, there's a lot to take in. For example, the architecture of Night City is far and away, not even close, the best city in a video game of all time. Buildings feel massive and impressive, but also true to the setting, telling a story all to their own. And in a way, Night City becomes the main character, one that molds and shapes everyone within it. That molding is important too because the characters in the game are immaculate, like Judy, Panam, Jackie, and Johnny. Each tragic in their own right and perfectly acted to bring some sort of emotion to every scene we so seldom get to see in other games. There are specific moments with, say, Judy, Panam, and Johnny that will genuinely shape you as a person and bring forth emotions in yourself that you didn't even know you had. Seeing a man with no friends confide in you, and regret for the past actions he has taken, and regret for who he was before. Or a woman falling into your arms crying, knowing she has lost the last thing she held so close. Moments like these are what makes Cyberpunk 2077 my favorite game of all time. The rawness, the cinematic flair, the times where you feel like a badass, quickly followed by a piercing hole being flung through your heart. The endings in this game show this idea perfectly too, and while I won't spoil them for you here, I can say that without a doubt, the message behind the finale of this game is so powerful it made me reevaluate even my own life. And some of the final moments in a few specific scenes are so enlightening that for the first time in my life, when I finished the game, a genuine feeling of sadness and beauty came over me where I just sat in front of a blank screen for a while, thinking. Cyberpunk 2077 is a perfect example of why video games are special, of what they can do as a medium of art to transcend simply being fun. A game with heart, action, passion, and soul. So if there's any single game I think that everyone has to play before they die, just for the fact that no others have quite reached its heights, it has to be Cyberpunk 2077. That's why even on release, I was making videos begging for people to play, arguing with thousands of others that the experience was something amazing even when people were hating on it. The core of this game is true art, and I'm happy to see that the world finally agrees. So if you haven't played yet, that's the first thing you should do.